Hey guys, it's Logan Freeman with LiveFree Investments. Today I got my good friend, business colleague, and investor, Owen Barrett. Owen, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So the topic of discussion today is solar power and how multifamily and commercial real estate investors, developers can utilize solar, as well as maybe we'll talk a little bit about water conservation and the other pieces of the puzzle, but how can we use this to our benefit? And Owen has written an article that is very interesting for folks, and a big question mark that I always get when talking to folks about solar is, well, 5 or 6 years ago, I got sold a large solar platform or system for my building, and it was over engineered, and we never saw any ROI on that. And so, when I sat down with Owen, we started talking about this on how to present this to developers, syndicators, investors. We really needed to work through the fact that the number one question is probably like, what's the ROI and how do I get there? So Owen, talk to us a little bit about your notion that forecasting energy savings is a science and it's not an art.
Yeah, and I feel everyone's pain who's been sold a bag of goods that doesn't fairly deliver. I think solar is, it's an industry like every other. There's good apples and bad apples, and
Yeah.
unfortunately there's a lot of bad salesmen, bad companies in solar, and people have gotten burned. We all know that negative experiences travel faster than positive.
Yep.
For solar, it's really pretty easy to estimate energy savings, but the critical part of this is that they're modeled in a scientific manner. So
Sure.
if you have one solar panel in San Diego and you have that same exact solar panel in Chicago, Illinois, it's going to generate much more electricity in San Diego than it will in Chicago. That's
Absolutely.
not to say that a project doesn't work in Chicago. It's just saying that you need to model energy production
Mm-hmm.
specific to where the property is. And if you're taking those numbers into account, then there's no issues with will you hit your targeted ROI or whatever metric you're using. The other critical piece that a lot of people miss is some companies will use really high annual utility escalators. So if you're paying $100 this year in electricity, they'll say, well, next year you're 130. That's probably not true. You may
Right.
pay 103 or 102. So it's making sure that you're conservative on your escalation rate, you're conservative on energy production, and that it takes into account the location of the property. But other than that, it's not rocket science.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And anybody that wants to check this out in more detail, we're going to continue this conversation, but you can head over to ValueAddSolar.com. And Owen, your experience with energy management is in the school district side of things in California. Talk to us about the big value add that you see for multifamily syndicators like the Joe Fairlesses, like the Jorge Abreu's, like the Michael Blancs out there. What can value add solar bring to these folks?
I would go out on a limb and say that for the right type of property, there is no better value add strategy than solar in any state in the US. So we've looked at Kansas, we've looked
Yep.
at Texas, we've looked at Oklahoma, which are some of the 3 states with the lowest cost of electricity. In those states, you're getting 1% cash on cash return right off the bat from solar.
Repeat
So
that again,
if
Owen. We buffered right when you said that.
in every state in the US, you will get a 10% cash on cash return from day one. Maybe it's 9.5%, but it's going to be pretty close to 10. We've looked at it in Kansas,
Yep.
Texas, Oklahoma, which are some of the states with the lowest electricity costs. It's 9.5%. So for people that are closing deals where there's over $50,000 a year in annual electricity costs, if you're not underwriting solar into that deal, you're losing a huge amount of money. Or you're just leaving more money on the table, more money that can be returned to investors and the sponsors of the deal.
Yeah, there is no better time, in my opinion, than right now to look at operational expenses and figure out a way to either decrease those or normalize those. With
Mhm.
what we're seeing on COVID-19 and vacancy rates going up and rent increases either flatlining or maybe even decreasing across the board, if you are a value add syndicator, this is something that needs to be in your business plan, because we might not be able to model big value add rent increases across the board now. We have to be a little more conservative in the underwriting. But one thing rings true: when you have a 250 unit multifamily building, there's going to be electricity costs, no matter if you can raise rents or not. So value add syndicators, anybody who is buying a property, looking to increase that NOI and adding the value to it by applying a cap rate or whatnot, you really need to be thinking about your operational expenses right now. And this is a fantastic way to do that. Anything else that you want to add on what we can provide to the syndicators, Owen?
I think too, not overlooking tax benefits. That's so a lot of limited partners are not only interested in the returns that real estate have, but also the tax benefits. Everyone's familiar with cost segregation. Solar basically has its own cost segregation. It's eligible
Yep.
for bonus depreciation in year 1 or 5-year MACRs. On top of that, there's a 26% tax credit, federal tax credit, dollar for dollar. So, not only are you getting a little bit more creative and figuring out other ways to add value and increase returns, you're also delivering more tax benefits back to your investor base, which makes projects even more attractive.
Yes, absolutely. Remember, we always talk about the 5 benefits of real estate investing. You have income coming in from rents, depreciation. So this is where Owen is talking about. You have the opportunity to really depreciate the value of that solar system. And we can have Yona on and talking through the specifics about that at another time. Equity buildup, appreciation, and leverage. Owen, how does somebody finance something like this?
There's a lot of different ways. There's just traditional term debt, 20-year term debt can be done where, maybe you have to raise an additional 20% of the cost of solar. So if it's $1 million system, you're raising 200 grand, you're going to finance 800. There's something called PACE financing, which is an assessment on your tax bill. PACE will cover 100% of the project cost. They'll amortize it, usually solar to 25 years, at least 20 years. So that's no money out of pocket.
Nice.
And then, another thing that could be considered depending on the investor base is you could just raise the additional capital 100% and include that in your capital raise and pay for solar that way. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach it. I think it just depends on the sort of the strategy of the property and what you want to do.
Okay, couple more questions on this. Oh, and I don't have a chiller. I don't have a master metered property. Does this still make sense?
Probably not. However, if there's a lot of amenities that are on the house meters, it may, but definitely the 2 best property types for solar are those with chillers and those that are all bills paid, or master metered properties.
Yeah. But the other piece that you can look at is, if you have a pool house, if you have a large common areas, you've got lighting in parking lots. If that number is, let's just say you threw out the number of $50,000 a year or more on your property, still makes sense, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk anyone out of solar. It's always going to make sense to have solar to offset your house related electricity costs. But if you're talking about, a $5,000 a year utility cost versus a $50,000 a year or a $150,000
Yep.
a year utility cost, obviously there's more value based on what numbers you're offsetting with solar. So it always will make sense. I think it just comes down to a trade-off. Is it worth your time compared to value add strategies that you're implementing?
Yes. Well, thankfully, you have the team that can come in and help these syndicators, developers work through that process and not add more onto their plate, right?
Yep,
So that
exactly.
is something that Value Add Solar can bring to the table. What does somebody need to get you, Owen, to evaluate their project? Say they're in due diligence and they're raising capital for the deal, and they would like to see if this might be a good fit for solar on their project.
Yeah, so the first place to start is 12 months of utility bills. From there, we can do a quick analysis. If the numbers look good from there, we'll either need to do an on-site visit or get some photos of the electrical service. And that's really all that we need. I'd say the third actually piece that we need is just confirmation of the age and condition of the roof that's going to be. You don't want to put solar on a roof that's going to need to be repaired or replaced soon because it's a pain. However, if you do need to include a new roof in your value add strategy and you put solar on roof, now you can bundle that 26% tax credit and bonus depreciation for not only the cost of the solar, but also the cost of the roof. So that's a different way to look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the one way or two ways that value add solar can bring value to the multifamily self-storage, office, triple net lease, if there is some sort of electricity usage for the owner, not the tenants. But we have seen it with tenants having it to cut down on their own costs as well. What about this, Owen? You've got an interesting new model that you would like to present to syndicators maybe that are looking for some equity. They might need a partner to come in, and or what are you looking for to acquire for yourself with value add solar?
Yeah, so we're looking for 100+ unit properties. Ideally, they're in Missouri, Phoenix, DFW, Tampa, Orlando, and potentially Vegas. We need a specific set of characteristics for our properties. So it has to be obviously in a MSA that is experiencing population growth, job growth, but it also needs to have favorable net metering policies for solar to be feasible. And the properties that we're seeing the best fit for solar, either that are supplying conditioned air to the units for air conditioning, or they're all bills paid. So if we can get one of those, or, the third type is a master metered property, but those just aren't that common. So all bills paid, chillers, or master metered in the MSAs that I mentioned, we can most likely raise equity for it.
Excellent. Well, you heard it here first, guys. Owen is the solar guy. I'm the equity guy. We're looking for deals. We're still looking for projects. We're open to collaboration opportunities, joint ventures, or outright purchases. So the one thing that I want you to keep in mind if you are a multifamily syndicator is this might make sense for your project. Additionally, if you're looking for some equity and you have some spots open on your GP side of the deal as well, that is definitely something that Owen and I would love to look at. We not only want to do well by doing good. This is something that Owen's very passionate about. I'm passionate about because it helps folks not only get into deals quicker and easier, in my opinion. My wife lived in an all bills paid property when she lived on the plaza in Kansas City and absolutely loved it. She never had to change any utilities into her name, anything. It was all provided for her. So we're really excited about looking into that model even more as folks are either moving into properties and want to move out in 12 months and they don't have to worry about those bills as well. So we'd love to look at projects with you guys. It's definitely something that we are passionate about and looking for to grow into. So Owen, is there anything else that you would like to add to the post today?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, to me, it's just a really interesting opportunity to, make these types of investments deliver something above and beyond a financial return. So like you said, you could do well by doing good.
Yes, absolutely. What's the little smiley brand that it's called something happy? It says doing good or something like that. It's a feel good piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I think Tom's did it with shoes. Patagonia
Yep.
did it with outdoor clothing. I think there's a really good opportunity to do it for real estate. There's with the societal impacts, a lot of workforce housing, babysitting, tutors,
Yep.
things like that. But there's nobody coming at it from a straight environmental angle.
Awesome. Owen, thank you so much. Thank you to Value Add Solar for being on today. And again, guys, if you have any questions, please reach out to myself, Logan Freeman, or Owen Barrett. You can also get a hold of us at valueaddsolar.com or livefreeinvestments.com. Thank you guys so much and have a great day.